Cé gur brastan Brasildi, tá sí taréis féin a chuma I gultúr agus I deangan na Gaeilge. Tarsila speaks Irish better than 99% of us, I can tell you. Her work includes picture books like Nog Our Skull by Myra Zepp. Hi, Myra. Big Spreelum by Saif Devlin. Hi, Saif. Agus Percy Paycog. I'm not sure if Gemma's here today. Tomorrow, okay, very good. And non-fiction titles such as My Little Album of Dublin and of Ireland, which my daughters and I were most honoured to feature in. She has had that highest of honours in Ireland, not the laureate, but having your work featured on the Christmas RTE guide more than once, and is currently one of Children's Books Ireland's champions of reading at St Joseph's National School in Dundalk, helping to foster a love of stories and books. No better woman. At the conference, Tarsila can usually be found doodling in the audience, and after many years of eagerly waiting for her tweets to be posted with a visual note of each session, we are delighted to have her front and centre this year. And illustrators, we need to call on you. Tarsila can't doodle her own sessions, so we want to see your sketchbooks after this one, please. Please welcome Tarsila Krüse.
Oh my God. Thanks, everybody, and thank you for such a lovely introduction. Can I please get that afterwards? Because it's so much better than what I have on my website. So, for those who don't know me, my name is not particularly Irish. My last name is German, but I'm actually from Brazil. So, and I also need to preface that this session will be in English for those who are expecting in Irish. Tigimanchanga, you know. Tigim níos far is féidirlum I allowed. So, tamig falum. Okay, people, so don't panic. Okay, so first of all, hello. I always like to bring a dog in the scene because dogs, why not? Most of people love them. And a party one, nonetheless. So, I'm from Brazil. And this is the country that I'm kind of from. And you see the little purple thing on the bottom there, that's São Paulo, that's the state that I come from. And this is the city that I grew up in. So just so you have a reference, you know, not everyone knows where we come from. Ireland is a little bit of a different country than from where I'm from. And the picture on the top there, that's literally the road I lived by. I lived behind that black building over there. So I grew up in a very, very large city. And when you live in a city like that, you feel very, very, very small. And this is Ireland for comparison. So there was a bit of a change of scenery when I came here. And when I say that I'm from Brazil, I find that quite interesting because there's an expectation that I should fulfill certain culture characteristics, and probably you do as well. And these are my ancestors, and they're from Germany, and Italy, and Spain, and Portugal, and there is even that dude from China. So when I say that I'm from Brazil, I find that quite puzzling, because I find that I am actually from lots of different places. And to go back to last year's conference in the feeling of home, I find that home is really where you find yourself, rather than exactly where you came from, because I definitely did not come from Brazil, even though I was born there. And when I was little, one of the things that I really loved were books, and I guess a lot of you did too, but not because I was particularly attracted to books, it's because they were all around me. You see, my grandparents from my father's side, that's the gentleman here holding me, and the lady over there, they were illiterate. So when my dad started going to school, when he learned how to read, and he learned that books could teach you things, he kind of became obsessed. And there are perks of being an only child. So there were books covering the walls of the apartment that we lived in, like literally, around 10,000 books. And my dad, being a very curious and smart person, he would leave strategic books around my height, so I would pick them up. So there would be children's books, there would be dictionaries on etymology, on mythology, and all sorts of things, because my dad has, how would you say, no limits into what books he can purchase. And often would find multiples of books in my house as well. Still going, guys. And when I had a question as a child, there was no Google then, he would just pick up a book off the shelf and we would find the answer together, because these are mostly non-fiction books. So this is what be all around me. Whew, I'm nervous. So because books were so ever-present in our lives, we'd often go for walks, and there was even a guy on a newsstand that lived in our building. He'd joke that my dad would come out reading the book, and I would pick up a comic book, and in, like a cartoon, we'd be walking like this. Be the two of us. So from a very young age, I learned how to love learning and how to figure things out. And I feel very lucky that curiosity was always celebrated in my upbringing. Again, being an only child has perks. So when I was around 8 years old, it was the first time that I heard people speaking English. Mind you, Portuguese is my native language. And I remember clear as day, my teacher was talking to another teacher, probably something I should not know about, because they were speaking English, obviously. And my jaw dropped, that feeling of people talking and they're saying something you have no idea what they're saying. And I just said, do you really understand what you're saying? And when they nodded their heads, I was so stunned. I was like, I knew it. They were spies. And because they were spies, I wanted in. I know absolutely that whatever they were saying, I needed to find out, because being that curious person, somebody that needed to know like what's going on, this was like magic to me. But what really I learned from that experience is that what seemed like gibberish to me had meaning to other people. So I set off to learn English, and as a teenager in the late 1990s, I had 3 excellent reasons for it. So I absolutely loved Hanson. I loved them so much. I would listen to their songs over and over again, but I would listen to other people too, for those who are judging me very badly. The Beatles were also a favorite, but for different reasons, obviously. So slowly I saw that speaking English and understanding English opened up a world of new possibilities to me. And I was very lucky growing up, because I got a chance to go to the States. That's where my accent comes from. I spent 6 months there studying high school. That's where I sharpened my English skills. And then when I returned to Brazil, I obtained a degree in letters, in Portuguese and English. But I also got a degree in digital communication, which gave me some skills like marketing and software. But, and I also became a teacher. So that's kind of like how I came to be into the professional world. And much like my father obsessed about books, I became obsessed with languages. So I went to learn Spanish, and I began to learn German. And then in my 20s, I was sure I was going to become an English professor at the university that I studied in. And that's when Ireland happened. And these are some of the things that I did when I was throughout my formation. Sorry, I missed that slide. Okay. And that's when Ireland happened. Ireland wasn't much on my radar, except for... I know, this is becoming a boy band, flashback. But my then boyfriend, now husband, and I decided that we wanted to spend some time abroad. We did some research and decided that we wished to go to an English-speaking country for a better chance to find work and maybe have a better experience. So luckily, one of my professors knew a Peter O'Neill, an Irish-turned-Brazilian resident, who actually could give us the scoop on what the country was like. And this is like 2006. So mind you, Google was around, but it wasn't what it is today. So Peter took us to an internet cafe. Remember those? Yeah? And he told us all about Ireland. He told us about the Lewis and Ryanair. He told us about the north and the south of the Liffey, that Ireland was having a moment. Celtic Tiger, anyone? But above all, that the people were really lovely. And he was lovely, so of course, why not? And unfortunately, that's not the same feedback we hear from other English-speaking countries, but we're not going to get into that. And we were off to the libraries. I read the Inish website back to front to figure out visas and whatnot. We rented DVDs to discover what the country was about. The most terrifying one was Veronica Guerin. And from our research, we gathered that Ireland had 3 amazing things. Unpredictable weather, exciting job opportunities, and incredibly welcoming people. So we're in. When we arrived in Ireland, 2 weeks in, I got my first job on the island designing Irish souvenirs. And I had a blog with some of my drawings. Maybe this is not great, okay. With some of my drawings, and I used it as a portfolio to apply for this job. And it was a risk because I did not have an art degree, still don't. But I knew that speaking English would get me through the interview. My question was my work good enough for it? And getting the job was actually quite enlightening because it's when I discovered that I could make money drawing. Because, you see, I love drawing since I was very young. And I got told off for doing it throughout primary school and university because I would do it in class all the time. But I never thought that I had the actual skills to work with it. So working with them also gave me a sense of being in the tourism industry and the commercial side of Ireland. So discovering what Irish culture was portrayed, how people perceived it, what people were proud of, what people were absolutely embarrassed about, and what they wanted to share with the world about being Irish. But there were a couple of big bumps along the road regarding the language. I was sure this was an English-speaking country, but it was very challenging to understand people when I arrived. Firstly, if you studied English grammar, you'll have a hard time figuring out when people say things like, "Did you hear from your man?" Or, "I'm after coming from the shops with the messages." Do you know why? Because that's Hiberno English. And Hiberno English is a set of dialects native to Ireland, for those who don't speak it, that give the Irish the flavor of the English that they speak. And if you're not from here, it can cause a bit of noise in the communication. So I was having enough of a hard time figuring out that dear meant expensive, and that when you have a chance actually meant right now. So, let alone give Irish a chance. So, yes, so we got that out of the way, right? Sorry, guys. But the thing is, what I want to share with you is that we are actually all polyglots. Not because you speak Hiberno Irish, I'm sure some of you don't, but because we always shift the structures that we use when communicating. So you would use a different vocabulary or structure if you're addressing the Uachtaráin na hÉireann, so if you're talking to the President of Ireland, or if you are confiding on a friend, or if you're talking to your local barista, or if you're applying for a bursary. They all require you to have a good command of different ways that you communicate. So we're all polyglots, and language is fluid like that. And because figuring out Irish on my own was, sorry, I missed that. And because because figuring out Irish on my own was proving to be quite difficult, because what I was trying to do is I was reading the English version of things and reading the Irish version and trying to make a connection. And English and Ireland are not even like close, distant cousins. They're like from different worlds. But I was having a hard time with that. And so I started inquiring to people, are there actually people who speak Irish? Because I see it everywhere. It's in street signs, it's in license plates, it's in official documents on the roads in the name of the police. But this is what I heard from people. Nobody speaks Irish. Irish is a dead language. Irish has no use. And being a foreigner who didn't know any better, I took people's word for truth. And I left Irish alone. Soon enough, it became noise, like music in an elevator. And I'm sure that a lot of you have that experience too, that when you look at a sign, you just read the English bit. Then a major economic crisis hit the world, and I was looking for work opportunities. At the moment, I was freelancing with translation, I was teaching, I was doing some drawing work, and I took up a couple of art classes. One of them was in writing and illustrating children's books. And those gave me some incredible friendships and connected me with other children's bookmakers that are here, you know who you are, and the certainty that I really wanted to work with children's books. So with my newfound partial confidence in my art, I thought that I had good enough work to apply for Illustrators Ireland, which is the Illustrators Guild of Ireland. And I did not get in. And I had to wait 6 months to apply again. So while I waited, I decided that I was going to approach every single publisher that had children's books in Ireland and give them a pack of postcards. So I made a few postcards, the one aforementioned by Elena, and I distributed to people. And I hope that that could pique the interest of somebody who wanted an illustrator. And in Irish fashion, I got a lot of replies. They were extremely polite, saying that, we're not really doing that right now. Or, you know, it's lovely work, we'll keep you on the books, but I never heard back from them. Until I got one response from a small publisher in Spiddle. And I remember how hard it was to like spell the word on the envelope because Irish could not figure that out. And his response was different. So it was Ty from Futafata. He's not here today, but he's here. He told me that in children's publishing, perhaps they should showcase something that's more geared towards children. So you see I have a reference to Black Swan up there. Yeah, not really childlike. At least not for the younger kids that I was aiming for. So he gave me all these pointers that I should perhaps illustrate a fairy tale in my own style, something that I could, you know, tweak up my portfolio and make it really interesting and appealing for children who actually publish for children, for things that actually look like they are made for children. And I was ready to go and so excited, but there was a big bump on my way. So 6 months into motherhood, I hear from Tig again. I have a story from this lady called Myra Zeff. And this is her debut picture book, and I think you'll be a lovely fit for it. And in the blur of the first year of parenthood, some of you may know, you don't sleep. After my husband got home from work from 8 p.m. to 3 in the morning, I illustrated Nagawer's skull. But then, you may ask, how does one go about illustrating a book in Irish, right? And this is going to disappoint so many of you. Tyke just gave me the translations. So he provided me with the translations, and I knew from being a language nerd that I would lack the nuances of the language. So fair play to every single translator in the audience, because your work is outstanding. Tyke gave me the translation, so I know that you need to convey certain things that are expressed in a language that I could not grasp. But I did my best through the language that I communicated, so pictures, to convey the ideas that were in the English manuscript. And after that, Tig asked me to illustrate another book. And this one was inspired by music. And with 4 other illustrators, so Jennifer Farley, Brian Fitzgerald, and Christina Donovan, they're here somewhere. And so what I did is, on top of the translations, because I really wanted to feel the book, I asked for the songs. So when I illustrated this book, I had to make sure that they would all be inspired and influenced by the rhythms and the melodies and the feelings, because I knew I didn't have the words for it. So I wondered, maybe I could write things in English and get like Tig to translate them in Irish and get them published. Maybe. And that's when I discovered something. There is a market for translated books that come from English into Irish. But a lot of the connection in the Irish-speaking community, especially through children's books, is through events in Irish. And there aren't many authors that can do those events, and even fewer illustrators. Challenge accepted. So, with the experience of creating more and more books with Futafata, and then facilitating numerous, maybe hundreds of bilingual workshops, mostly with Sive Devlin, she's here. I noticed that there were a lot, and I mean a lot, of people who actually spoke Irish. Some were self-conscious, but some were hardcore speakers. And this is when I discovered, oh, sorry, I missed that too, my books, in Irish. This is when I discovered the secret society of the Gaelgore. And sorry for putting you on the spot, but I know that you've only worked with Irish throughout your career in education, in media, in publishing, in all sorts of things, right? So, when you say that a language is dead, that wouldn't really be possible, right? But as I was saying, to me, it really seemed like it was a secret society. It's like former Lauren Anogue, Anya, where's she? Anya, Nicolene, mentioned, there was this cloak of invisibility over the language that, like, we look at the signs and we don't see the Irish there. That, to me, has fallen. And to me, when this curtain was down, I knew that that was important. Because just like when my teachers revealed themselves to me as spies, I knew that this was something big, and I wanted into, especially because I knew that this would have so much more meaning. Language is an expression of culture, but it can also be used as a tool of oppression. So when a language is superimposed over others, as it is in many colonized countries, we know that the attempt is not to make the colonized people speak the language, but it is to erase their culture, their stories, their history. And I know this because I speak Portuguese. I don't speak Tupi. I don't speak any of the native Brazilian languages. And maybe you can relate too. But what I know from speaking other languages, including illustration, is that language can expand our horizons. It can change our points of view. It can create new perspectives to understand the world. It can give us new possibilities. And isn't that what children's books do too? They make us more empathetic. They make us more open. They show us things that we didn't know or see before. Languages and children's books say, let me show you the world through my eyes. And because I have no bias or trauma regarding the Irish language, I see it as a gift. A gift to see and understand the world in a way that not too long ago I just had a glimpse of. So my husband and I, we actually enrolled our son in a Gael school because we want him to have the gift that we cannot give him, but we can provide him with. I began studying Irish with my son through his Oberwelle, his summer work. And I took courses at Corna na Gaeilge and Gael Tour online. And I took up daily practice through Duolingo. I'm at 707 days today. But what truly made the difference in learning Irish, at least for me, was the support. All Irish-speaking people, even if they had koppelfokkel, that I met, they were always so happy about my Gaeilge Brista. Always. Patricia, Ford, Grania from Schapelauer, Paula, Sive, Gemma, Anya, so many people, always happy to put up with my emails and text messages and questions. So thank you. And also, during the pandemic, I have a Brazilian friend who's also a language nerd. She started learning Irish through the pandemic, and she invited me to join her. So we bought a couple of self-study books and an Irish gramadach. And since then, we have been digitally studying Irish every single week. And in this past July, we went to the Gael Talked with the Dina Foster. And we stayed with the Bon and Tea. We didn't have a curfew, though. But we did have dreams as Gaeilge. So it was actually quite wonderful. So from day one, my experience in Ireland has been of mutual love. Ireland opened its arms to me, and I just embraced it back. And I hope the children and the children at heart, I see all of you, can see themselves through my work, be through the English language books that I make that are inclusive and diverse, which I believe reflect what Ireland has been becoming, or through the books in Irish that reach into the Irish-speaking communities and beyond to children like my son who didn't have a word of Irish at home, but the heart to embrace it. I know, I talked a lot about languages and connection, but I didn't quite mention risks and rewards. And that's because personally, I think that the word risk evokes a notion of fear, to take back to what Munji was saying. And I prefer to see risks as opportunities, or opportunities, as I wrote. It's a matter of perspective. All these things, reading books, learning languages, moving countries, going to university, making souvenirs, illustrating books in a language that I didn't speak, they can all be considered risks or opportunities. Because failing, like Manjit was saying, is not about, because failing is when the outcome is different than your expectation. So you can either celebrate things going your way, or you can learn from taking a different direction. So here's what I want to offer you. You have a gift. You have a gift of seeing the world through a language that most people in the world don't. You have the gift to keep the Irish heritage and culture alive. And that's what makes you authentic and unique. You all have the power to transform and create new relationships with this language. Ireland is both a very new and an ancient country. And we're all part of this Irish history. And it is up to us to choose the legacy that we're going to leave for the children in Ireland in the future. So I want to finish this session with a little excerpt from a song that I used to sing with my dad as we walked around the streets once we were done reading. And it's called Como uma onda no mar by Lulu Santos. It's like a wave in the sea. And this is a song that has a tropical feel-good vibe with like seagulls and waves in the background. And the lyrics go like this. Nothing that is will ever be again the way it once was. Everything goes, everything will go. Life comes in waves, like a sea, an infinite going and coming. So take that risk or opportunity. Share your stories and your dreams. Write your book. Speak your language. Gramagat.
Hi, Tarsila, that was absolutely amazing. This isn't a question, but it's a request. Would you possibly read the words of that song to us in Portuguese? Because I saw them and I would just love to hear them, and I'm sure other people would as well.
Do I have to sing it? Oh my God, and I'm nervous. This is not helpful. Okay, I'll just say it, because otherwise I'll just make a fool of myself. Ok. Nada do que foi será, de novo do jeito que já foi dia. Tudo passa, tudo sempre passará. A vida vem em ondas como o mar. num indo e vindo infinito. I love that song.
Tarsila, that was wonderful. And I've known you for a few years, but I learned lots of new things about you, which is wonderful. I know you do a lot of work with schools and children. And I have two questions, actually. I'll ask the first one really quickly. I wanted to know their reaction to you being Brazilian, learning Irish and everything. And also, if there was one book in the world you could illustrate, what would you like to illustrate?
I'll answer the first one, and then we'll think about the second one. So the reaction is amazement. So when I used to see a Guel Scolano especially, I would often go with somebody, so like somebody that is a Guel Galifa, usually it's Sive. We did like 1 billion workshops together. But teachers would often be quite impressed, not by the fact that the fact that I am Brazilian is a bonus in people being overly impressed, but I think it's the willingness to use the changa is what really makes a difference. Because if you come in and you are willing to use it, even like, because if they know you're not a native speaker, they don't expect you to speak it. But it's almost like a kind way of connecting with people, again, is I see your language, I respect you, and I'm here for you, even if I speak like very broken Irish. You know, it's the effort that it really is. And I haven't met anyone that has spoken Irish that kind of went, oh gosh, your Irish is so rubbish. You know, like I've never met anyone like that. It's always been very welcoming, going, oh my God, you speak Irish. Yeah, that was wrong, doesn't matter. That was amazing. So it's always been a very open community. So, you know, if you ever feel intimidated by going into the shop a Lauer, it doesn't matter. Just go in, speak a couple of focal, get your Lauer, and off you go. And about if I could illustrate any book in the world, I don't think I want to illustrate any work that has been. I think I want to illustrate whatever is ahead of me. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, Tarsila.
Tarsila, that was brilliant.
Battle of the Laureate.
Oh, sorry. I hand over to this year's laureate. You go first.
No, Anya, I know my place. I know my place. Go on ahead.
Okay, Tarsila, that was absolutely wonderful. One thing that occurred to me there, and maybe you'd answer it for us. Do you think you have a huge advantage coming to the Irish language with no baggage? Because due to the poor educational system, the bad teaching of Irish over the years, so many Irish people have a shame about speaking Irish when they think they should be fluent. Do you think it's an advantage for you coming completely fresh to it?
Yes, I do. But I think Ireland has a very complicated history. And I think that especially when a language is used, like I mentioned, as a tool of oppression, it's like English is both a gift and a curse for the Irish, for the island of Ireland, because it allowed the country to expand exponentially, financially, economically in the world so much. But at the same time, there was so many divides over the language that lives here. So I think that it's a complicated question. So because I do come from a country that I did not speak, like I started from scratch, absolutely no reference, I didn't feel like it was a useless language. I didn't feel like it was bashed into my head when I was in school. I didn't feel like it was useless. I never had those concepts. In my head, it was just a language, like you speak German or French and you speak Irish. Ken fana will. You know? So yeah, I find that, and perhaps, you know, people can find that whatever they're carrying, their own ideas of what the language is in their own minds, maybe they start questioning that, because it is a belief and not a fact. The language is here. I mean, what best place on earth to learn Irish?
Hey, Tarsila, bhí sé sin go híntaach agus tá tú hain go híntaach. So gur mágad é sin. I was going to say, you are a linguist in many ways. You not only speak languages, you speak friendship really well. I think it was very easy to welcome you into this world. And you also speak children's books really well. I love your illustration, and I think it was a huge advantage to all of us that you washed up here on our shores. So, now, Neil Ach... Níl ach ceist óháin agam, an bhfuil tú chun leabhar a scríobh as Gaeilge.
Beidir.
Se. Well, maithú.
Beidir láháin, mar ceapan Beidir ina einam seo chugan, bhaid mé na workshop. Cardlan a déanamh leis na páistí, agus Beidir scríomh mé leis na páistí. Dó na páistí freisin. So, yeah. So, still, guys, bridged, but I'm doing my best. Gora million mahagif. Thank you. Oh, sorry, one more.
Hi, Tarsila. That was amazing. Gora Mila Mahagot. I want to ask you a question, and it's based on something that Nuala Ní said many years ago. She said she does her business in English and she emotes in Irish. I just wonder for you, obviously you're a polyglot, you have several languages, but when you're emoting, I guess, what language is that? And if that's too personal, I'm sorry, but I'm just very interested.
No, my brain these days works a lot in English, so that would be my primary language. But I express myself better in drawing. And that's actually how my last book came about. As I went through postnatal depression with my son, and I went to therapy, the therapist suggested I keep a gratitude journal. And I didn't know I had postnatal depression, but I felt it was a great time for me to perhaps draw moments of gratitude. And that's how my book Little of Lessons came about. And it was from expressing what I feel in images. So, thank you.